We're learning today Lelui Nishis Bracha Vashem and Avram and Yitzchak and Alexander ben David and Pelizis Vashem. We are on Brachos Daf Mem Aleph on the base, approximately 5 lines from the bottom. Zayma, they ask Ben Zayma. So the things that you eat because of the meal, in the meal, you don't need to make a bracha not before and not after. Why do they say that? Why do you need to make a bracha? The bread, you make a bracha on the bread, that relieves you from making a bracha on, if you're having in a meal, you have, I don't know what, mashed potatoes, you don't have to make a bracha on your potatoes, that's part of the meal. They asked me, if that's so, yainami naftere pas. The bread should also relieve you from making a bracha on yayin. Why do you make a bracha in the meal on wine? So obviously, according to Rashi, Taisa says, the Rashi is going to have to understand this to mean. Rashi says it's Italian being toffel to the bread, meaning something you eat with the bread should relieve you. So we're talking about here, according to Taisa, so you dip your bread in the wine, so you shouldn't have to make a bracha on the wine. But if you drink wine, of course you make a bracha on the wine. That's like gemorah's kasha. The gemorah's kasha is if you dip your bread in the wine, why do you have to make a bracha on the wine? Okay. Taisa says, obviously we saw yesterday that Taisa says, understand the sugya, that anything you eat in the meal, you're having a meal and you eat potatoes without bread, of course the bread part is the whatever you eat with the bread, and that's how we paskin. So that's what he asked him. Wine should be potter. So he said to him, Shani yain, yain is different. The gairem bracha la'atzmai. Yain has its own bracha. Take a look at the top Rashi. The gairem yain la'atzmai, we're on Mem Beis Amud Aleph. In many places in Yiddishkeit, in life, you make a bracha on wine, you make kiddush, in the Sudas Chasanim, in whatever, you make a bracha on yain, in the middle of Lel Seder, you make brachas on wine, even though you don't want to drink the wine, you're not interested now in drinking wine, you drink wine, you make a bracha. So wine's special, wine's elevated, wine demands its own bracha. Taisa says, take a look at Taisa on the previous Amud, the bottom of the previous Amud. So, Pirush Rashi, second line in Rashi. Actually, we'll start with double Rashi. So, double Taisus. According to Taisus, when you drink wine in the meal, it's because of the meal. If you weren't eating now a meal, you're not going to drink 5 cups of wine now in the middle of the afternoon. The reason why you're drinking wine is because you're having a meal. So that's how Taisus understands why it's part of the meal. It says, Yain the Gemorah Latzmai, Pirush Rashi, what does it mean? Rashi says that in many places you make a bracha on yain, even though you have no interest now in drinking wine. Varash Pirush Rashba argues, it's one of the few places I think Taisus quotes the Rashba. Doesn't mean that Goyer and Bracha La'atzmai means that it's got its own unique bracha. When the grapes on the tree, you say Bayer Pri. And now you squeeze it, you squeeze the orange, you drink the orange juice, you say shakal. You squeeze a grapefruit, you drink the juice, you make a shakal. You squeeze a pomegranate, you drink it, you say shakal. But you squeeze a grape, you drink it, you say Bayer Pri Gofen. It's got its own unique bracha, so it's very special. And that's why here, in the middle of the Suda, you decide to have a cup of wine, the bread doesn't part to you. You've got to make a Baipre Gofen on your grape juice in the middle of the meal. All right. Says Taisa, says Gemorah, Rafuna, interesting story here. Ravuna achal kleisa rifti b'nei tilsa bakaba. He ate kleisa, means 13 rifti, basically type of wafers. He was a Reish Galusa. He was the Nasi, the direct descendant of King David, and the God Ladar also, Rafuna. And he ate 13 of these wafers. Rifti is like some type of bread thing. Papashas is some type of wafers. It's pasal b'kisnin. Rashi says pasal b'kisnin. According to Rashi, pasal b'kisnin means it's with nuts and dates, whatever it is, fruit in it. Others seem to apply some type of wafer, some type of flaky thing. So b'nei tilsa b'kava, meaning there's three of them make up a kav. A kav is basically 24 eggs, 24 beitzim. An egg is roughly 50 to 60 grams. So a kav is around 12. What is a kav? It's 12. Sorry. So each tilsa, that each rifti is going to be a third of 24, meaning eight eggs. So 8 eggs is approximately 400 grams. So he had a bunch of these 400 grams. He had a lot. He had 400 grams times. He had 13 of them. So basically, he had, I guess, whatever, a few kilo, 3 kilo plus of this pasal b'kisnin. All right, it's not such a chiddush. I once was sitting with a guy. He ate 2 boxes of rogalach. It was like 2 kilos. He asked me how many calories that was. We calculated it was like 7,000 calories. Right. So you can have in one sitting. People do it if it tastes good enough. And actually, the Mepharshim was saying he didn't eat it quickly. It was over a long period of time. Anyway, so what happened? He ate these 13 wafers. Right. V'lei berach, he didn't make a bracha. No bracha. It means obviously he made a bracha beforehand. V'lei berach. So what does this mean? He didn't make a bracha. It's a 3-way machlekes like everything else. It means one opinion is, Rebbeinu Yin brings, he didn't make any bracha. No bracha. 0. Afterwards. Others say it means, Taisa seems to say it's pasal b'kisnin. Taisa's opinion is, Lei berach berachas hamazon. He didn't bench. He said, of course, he said alamichya. Others say, like birch means he made a bar nefashis. He didn't make alamichya, he made a bar nefashis. Take a look in Rashi. So there's a big shaila. What's going on over here? What did he eat exactly? Let's first see the next line of the gemorah. So we've got a bit of let's see the answer. So what happened? He ate these 13 things and didn't bench. Amalei Rav Nachman, who was not his Talmud, he lived in the same kufa, and he was another gadol, said, Adi chafna, meaning he was a reish galusa, he was a gadol adar, you can't be chutzpahdik to him. So Adi chafna means, he's still hungry? He ate 13 of these wafers. You're still hungry, Rabbi? Right? Ella, kol shacherim kavim. In other words, why are you not benching? He sees he ate 13 and he didn't make a bracha. The pashtus is, the implication is, he didn't make any bracha. So he's asking, what? You just finished eating. I saw you just popped in 13 hot dogs, whatever they are, like 13 donuts. Why aren't you benching? Bench. Adi Chafni is still hungry? If other people, that's a kvi suda, that's the meal that they have. You got to bench. Even if you're still hungry, since other people, for them, that's kvi suda, and this is a massive halachic gemorah. If other people are kaveh suda, you've got to bench. Even though you might still be hungry, you're not benching. If other people are hungry, if other people, that's their kaveh suda, that's what they consider a meal, then you got to bench. So what's going on over here? Take a look in Rashi. Second line of Rashi. Rashi says he ate 13 of these donuts, whatever it is, wafers, and he didn't bench, he didn't make a bracha afterwards at all. It doesn't say he didn't make a bar nefashis. He didn't bench. There was no bracha. That's the story. That's how the story flows. That's why they said to him, why are you not benching? Because if, according to the other Rishonim, he said alamichya, so why he shouldn't say, why did you say alamichya? You should say birchas hamazon. They didn't say you made the wrong bracha. He said, why are you still hungry? What, you're still hungry? That's what they asked him. The implication is, the pashtus in the story is that he didn't say any bracha. It's shver to say he made a bar nefashis. Because then they should have told him, Rebbe, you made the wrong bracha. And they didn't say you made the wrong bracha. They said, you still hungry? Why are you not benching? You know, that's it. You should be done by now, right? So Rashi says he didn't make any bracha. Amar Nachman, Adi Chafa, Garsin, Adi Elu Kleima, El Reva Nechlu, Vachlim Baroba, Kuzu, Leitra, Bracha. Okay, so next Rashi. Ella, kol shacherim koivin. This is the rule. Kol shacherim koivin achilosim bekach toin birchas hamazon. If other people make that a meal, then you have to do birchas hamazon. Even if for you it's not a meal, you're still hungry. But if for other people that's a meal, most people don't eat 3 kilos of donuts, then you chayv birchas hamazon. In other words, what's the idea? The idea is that this pasal b'kisnin, if it's a kfiyah suda, if it's a meal for most people, now it's got a din of bread. Now, a donut is not a meal. It's not bread, you don't have to bench on it. But if people make that into a meal, you're having enough that's a meal, say the Rishonim, then it's got a din of bread. It's like you had bread. And on bread, you have a kazai, so you got a bench. So they told him, you kaveh suda, bench. Kach pirush Reb Chaim. That's how Reb Chaim, the guy who lived before the Rishonim, hundreds of years before Rabbi Sayyid Pirushu. Rabbi Torah says Rashi, Tleis Rifti mipas shelanu. He ate 13 regular loaves of bread. Bread, not pasal b'kisnin. It wasn't some type of donut. He ate 13 bagels, right? Regular bread. He didn't bench afterwards. He didn't bench because he wasn't full. So even though he had bread and he didn't have just the kazais, he had 13 bagels, he still didn't bench. Why? Because he was still hungry. And that's why I told him, you're still hungry? Other people make a suda on it, you got to bench birchas hamazon. Ask Rashi, how does that make sense? It says, v'chroksi v'chalta v'savata v'virachta. Says in the pasuk, v'chalta v'savata v'virachta, you got to be full. You got to be full to bench. He's not full. I don't have the bench. So it says Rashi, kach pish of Yehudai bahag, ve'ein nirali. I don't like it. Doesn't make sense to me. Why? Because the gemorah said, the leisle rufuna, ve'ein michmiru alatzma mad kazais v'kabetza. You're right. Of course, with the raisa, you only have to bench if you're full. It says in the verse, v'chalta, you eat v'savata, you're full, and you bench. According to biblically, if you're not full, you don't have to bench. So why is he not benching? Because he's not full. That's why he doesn't bench. But says the gemorah, hey, midrabanan, we were mekabel on ourselves to do birchas hamazon. Even if you have a kazayis, you have a gebetza. So Rashi doesn't like the fact that he didn't bench. How could that be pshat? He ate bread, he didn't bench. What? He's chaylik on that gemorah? So first of all, it could be his chaylik on that gemorah. I don't know, why can't he be chaylik on that gemorah? That's A. B, some come to say, I'll tell you what's going on, according to this shita. He was only chayav birchas hamazon d'Rabbanan, because he wasn't full. Everyone around him was chayav birchas hamazon d'Oraisa, because he was the nasi, they wanted him to bench. And be mighty everyone. He said, I can't bench. Someone's chayav birchas hamazon d'Rabbanan can't be mighty, someone's chayav birchas hamazon d'Oraisa. Gewaldig. That's how someone understand. Others say a totally different shot. Major chiddush. When you chayv midrabanan, according to some opinions, when you chayv midrabanan birchas hamazon, if you had the kazayis had an olive worth of bread, you chayv midrabanan birchas hamazon. That's only if you filled up on other things. You filled up on the burger, on the meat, right? Then you chayv birchas hamazon d'oraisa, even if you only had a kazayis. But he didn't fill up on anything else. He's still starving, hungry after his 13 donuts. So therefore, he's not chayiv even the Rabbanan to do birchas hamazon. That's what someone understand. Clear from Rashi. Rashi doesn't understand like that. According to Rashi, and that's the Pashas Mos Rishonim, that if you eat the kazayas, even if you're starving, hungry afterwards, midrabanan, you got a bench. We don't care if you're full. So in other words, according to that opinion, the Chacham said you could be surveyor from other things in chayiv birchas hamazon. Oh, David's here. Okay, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Okay, before you go further, it's a major. I want to address something before you go any further. So according to this Gemara, it turns out, right, what creates the chiyuv of birchas hamazon? If most people have a meal. Now, first, it's important. Rishonim discuss. The Achronim discuss. Is it talking about a guy walks into a pizza store at 4 PM and decides to have a meal, sits down, has a meal? And they say no, it's not talking about you just have a random meal. We're talking about a guy that 2 meals have in a day. They used to have 2 meals a day. They had 2 meals a day. 2 meals a day. Everyone ate 2 meals. The meals you have to, the meal that's kaviyah suda has to be from the 2 meals you have a day. Like, okay, it's not enough to say, okay, I had what's up, nowadays the dietitian says you should have 16 meals a day or 6 meals a day. So, he ate enough to one of his 6. So that's a suda. No. The suda means you have one of your 2. Boiker v'erev, right? And how much does a person eat for a meal? Since for Erev Tafshilin you need 8 kibetzim, which is for 2 meals. So Suda it's a machlokes for 6 or 8. A Suda is normally considered to be 4 beitzim. 4 beitzim, a beitza is around 50, 60 grams. So you're talking about 250 grams for a meal. 4 times 60 is what, 240? Okay. Now also there's opinion that eggs are smaller nowadays, really it should be bigger. But a guy has a meal roughly, I'm not talking about you walk in the middle of the day, you have a nash, you want to sit down for a snack. That's your meal, that's your breakfast. Speak to a guy that does 1 meal a day, what does he eat? He's not eating a slice of pizza 1 meal a day. He's having, or 2 meals a day. You're having a proper breakfast. You got to fill yourself up the whole day, right? So you're talking about 250 grams. So a lot of people, I'm addressing this because a lot of people think, now the question is can you include the cheese on your pizza? You're having a pizza. Do you include the cheese on the pizza? Do you include the tomato sauce? So some say, l'chayra, you do include it in Birchas HaMazon. In other words, you got to come to 250 grams. A slice of pizza is around 125, a thin slice of pizza. And people used to say that 2 slices of pizza is Yechayiv Birchas HaMazon, 2 slices of pizza, because that's a share Birchas HaMazon. I think it's a big mistake. First of all, because they used to have much thicker slices of pizza. Now the thin slice of pizza, you don't get 250 grams. Second of all, maybe you got to check your slice, right? If you get the thick slice, the wide, it gives you the wide one, maybe you do. If you get the thin one, good luck. You're having a 120 gram slice. You're not getting 250. The other shaila is it has to be, according to most Achronim, it has to be stuff that you normally eat with bread. So maybe the cheese and the ketchup, that's part of the sauce, that's part of the bread. But according to Chazon Ish, it has to be something that you eat normally with bread, like cheese. If you're having a wafer, and then you have on the side, I don't know, you have herring, so that's not mitzvah after the meal, right? That doesn't add up.
You don't have to make Birchas HaMazon.
So l'chayra, you don't need to do Birchas HaMazon if you're having separate things. I think the Chazon Ish seems to be saying, and the Birchas Yosef says that you don't include anything besides for the dough. You only bench if you have 250 grams of dough. It doesn't help if you add anything else. And the Chazon Ish, for sure, if you had the cheese before you had the dough, then l'chol deis, no one will say then you have to bench. So if you had like a bunch of fruit or you had a bunch of herring, and then you had your dough, then you had your crackers, whatever, then you for sure don't have to bench. It's only preposterous if you have 250 grams of dough, of the bread stuff. So now the next question is going to be, what happens if you have to be kaveh suda, right? So what happens to a kid? A kid has 1 slice of pizza, or an old man. A guy has the injections he can't eat. He has 1 slice of pizza and he's full. So he never benches. So that's the pashtus. The pashtus says, the gemorah says, you go with what other people do. It's not only if you're kaveh suda, if you have a meal, but if other people make it into a meal, then you have to bench. So therefore, a kid, or someone that's young, or someone that gets full very easily, he never has to bench. He can never, not that he never has to, it's a bracha levatala. You bench, it's a bracha levatala. It's also the bench. Mishnah Berurah says, l'chayra, with the people that are youngsters and oldsters and guys in their old age who eat small amounts, since b'nei gilon, their age, that's how they're kaveh suda, so you'll also, that'll be kaveh suda for you also. You don't look at the entire population, you look at people your age group. L'chayra, if a guy's taking these shots, injections, and he can't eat, he has a small amount, it's not like he's young. People his age are having 300 gram meals. Just because he's having 100 grams of pizza, and that's his meal, he doesn't have to bench. That's not called a suda.
This is probably why there's an knowlege where they say most of the flour on pizza or not.
Well, it depends if you're being kaveh suda. If l'chayra 3 slices, the share here, 3 slices, I'm calculating is already kaveh suda. 2 slices, l'chayra it's a big shaila. You definitely don't have more than 200 grams of dough. Definitely not. or 250. And b'pashas there's definitely shitas that say you need 250 grams of dough.
Rishonim and Achronim says you need 3 pieces, 3 slices.
That makes sense to me. Okay. Now, the other question is, what happens but b'pashas, if you have your 3 slices, but for you it's not a meal, but everyone else it is a meal, so b'pashas, it looks like you have to bench. The Meiri brings an opinion that unless you're kaveh suda, you don't bench. He doesn't like it, but there is an opinion out there that only if it's a meal for you. So in this case, like Rav Huna, it's not a meal for him, he doesn't have to bench. All right.
1 second, why would something like grilled cheese sandwich, which is equivalent to matzah, pizza, be more of a hamotzi than a piece of pizza?
Because there you're having mamish bread. There it's not sweet dough, it's mamish bread, l'chayra. It was bread, and you changed it. Hey, this was never bread. I don't know, good question. I got to think about it. But there you're taking regular bread, and it's still bread. It looks like bread. So you got to bench it just because you put stuff on the bread. So you have a tuna bagel, you shouldn't make hamaitzi. Now the big question comes in, this is the big kasha that happens to all of us every week. You say to yourself, I'm only going to have 3 eggs worth, 3 beitzim or 2 beitzim of the cake, right? You start eating, and then it's like, you know what? I want another 2. I have another one. And now you hit the share of brichas and mazen. So there's 2 questions. Do you have to now say hamaitzi lechem min haaretz on the last beitza? Or can you carry on with the bainim and uzainus? Now, if you know you're going to now sit down and have 7 slices of pizza, you've got to wash and make a mitzi, right? You started with 2, and now you're like, you know what, I have a 3rd slice.
You're not going to be a suda on a piece of cake.
No, so you sit down, and you have your slice of pizza. You have 2 slices of pizza. You said bainim and uzainus, and now you decide, you know, I'm going to go for a 3rd one. I'm still hungry. So now, do you now say, do you have to wash and say hamaitzi on the 3rd slice? So a lot of Rishonim and Mashma that you don't have to. Since the 3rd slice, now there's only 1 left. That's not a suda.
But there's a major
So you don't have to say hamaitzi on it.
There's a major difference between the pizza and the cake.
Now forget about cake. Ignore cake. I'm not talking about cake. Cakes, I'm saying you never kaveh suda on cake. Okay. Pizza. People have a meal of pizza. No one has a meal of... No one sits down. Pizza, people have a meal of pizza, right?
Has a meal on kakash.
It's not normal. It's people that butler diet. It's a collage. No one sits down and says, you know what we're going to have for lunch, honey? We're having cake. That's our meal for today. No one does it. It doesn't happen. Right? And if there's one guy in a million does it, it's called butler diet. It's a collage. L'chari, you don't have to wash a bench. We're talking about pizza, the guy, maybe, it could be that this sugya here, it depends, it's machlokes Rishonim. What did he eat? What was this, what did Rav Huna eat? Was it cake? Was it wafers? What was it exactly? So the shaila is going to be, l'chari, you for sure have to bench. Once you hit your 3rd slice, but pashtas, you got a bench now. You had a meal. Some say maybe on the 3rd slice, you do have to now wash. Others say if after 2 slices you decide you're going to have another 3 slices, then you for sure got to wash. The Brahman doesn't party from that. Okay. We're going too far out of the thing. We're going to get back to Gemara. It says in Gemara. I had to mention all that because these are the biggest shilas that hit all of us definitely every single week. It says the Gemara. So, Rav Yehuda. We're in the 4th line on Membeis Amud Aleph. Rav Yehuda asik lebrei bei Rav Yehuda. He went to the chasna. Rav Yehuda married off his son to Rav Yehuda bar Yehuda Chaviva. Aiska mai pas b'kisnin. He brought in front of him this pas abba b'kisnin, pocketed donuts, whatever it is. He also shaminu kamei d'brach yamitzi. He heard that they're saying hamaitzi on this pas abba b'kisnin. They didn't say bainim mezainas like they're supposed to. They said hamaitzi. So what did he say? Amalahu. He said to them, "My tzitzi to koshamana. I'm hearing tzitzi tzitzi tzitzi. What is that? I'm hearing everyone the tzitzi. In other words, I hear you saying hamaitzi. He said it quietly to bracha. Maybe they were, I don't know what, they don't want to hear it, but you heard the tzi. It's a strange sound that you only say in the bracha of hamaitzi. He heard tzi. What's this tziing I'm hearing? Are you making a bracha? Hamaitzi lechem min haaretz? That's what's going on over here? Amalei, he said, yeah, we're doing hamaitzi. You know why? The Tanya. It says in the Brayso, Rav Muna Amar Mishum Rav Yehuda. You know, Lefi Rav Muna, You say, I might say, Pasuk B'Kissin. V'Amar Shmuel, and Shmuel says, Halacha Germuna. Shmuel says, we pass like this, Rav Muna. You got to say, I might see on Pasuk B'Kissin. You have a donut, say, I might see. Amalahu, he said to them, Ein Halacha Rav Muna Itmar. We don't pass like Rav Muna. Shmuel said, we don't pass like Rav Muna. You said, Shmuel says, you pass like Rav Muna. No, Shmuel said, we don't pass like Rav Muna. Amalei, V'Maru Da'amar Mishmei Shmuel. Didn't you tell us in the name of Shmuel, Lachmanias is loaf, is bread, some type of pasuk b'kissin. It's a big machlekes, we'll see in a second. Lachmanias ma'avim b'han u'muvach and alen omaytzi. You could do erev tafshilin on Shabbos. You put it in the house that you can carry, and you make omaytzi b'chalatz on these lachmanias. What's lachmanias? Rashi says uvliash, belaz. In French, it's oubliage. Some type of wafers. Taisha says it's not wafers. Take a look at Taisha's lechmania. It's Pirish oubliage. If it's some type of wafers, you should make a mitzvah anyway. Shari lechem gomer. These things are lechem gomer. I'm not sure what it is, but some type of wafers. Shari seifa isa. It's a dough when you bake it. Why isn't that mitzvah? The near lefash dainu nilish. Taisha says it's nilish. So what is it, according to Taisus? According to Taisus, it's some type of bake mix that you dip your vegetables in, and like panko mix, breadcrumbs. You take your breadcrumbs, and you got like your broccoli, you dip in your breadcrumbs, and you bake it in the oven. So you're having like a whole loaf of bread, but it's, it's a crust. So by itself, you'd say, if you make a meal out of your panko fried, whatever it is, then you've got to make a mitzvah. So he said to him, so that's what they asked Shmuel. Didn't you say in the name of Shmuel, the lachmanias, which is pasuk b'kissin l'chayra, you make v'zainas, you make a mitzvah? So he answered, shani hasam. That's different. The kovas of the salayu. If you make a meal, you make it into a meal, you got to say a mitzvah. If it's not a meal, you don't make a mitzvah on it. Rav Papa went to the house of Rav Nasa. After he finished his meal, they brought him something else to eat. He finished the meal, then they brought out, a next course. Rav Papa took it and ate. Don't you agree? Don't you know that once you finish eating, it's asa lechol? Now it's a machlekes. Does it mean asa lechol b'lei bracha or asa lechol b'chlal? Does it mean you should have to make a bracha now? Or no, you can't even make a bracha. L'chayr means asa lechol. It's forbidden to eat, according to Rashi. Amalus table. If you didn't clear the table, you can still eat. It's got nothing to do with whether I finish eating. It's got to do with whether you cleared the table. Rav Zera, they went to the house of the Reish Galusa, the Nasi, they cleared the table. They brought in front of them some meat after they cleared the table. They brought them some, I don't know what, some delicious meat. Right? From the house of Reish Galusa. It's important to know they didn't bring it from outside. They brought more meat out after they finished. Rav Achel, he ate, he didn't eat. You don't hold it. Once you clear the table, it's forbidden to eat. How could you eat? I don't know. You know why you ate? Because I'm relying, it's not my house, I'm relying, my das is whatever he brings out. So since he bought, I finished the meal, but my das is if he brings out more, I'm going to eat more. So therefore, I can still eat it. There's no problem. Take a look at Taisus.
One second, it's not always like that. You sit down in the meal, or you eat, you're full. All of a sudden, he brings out some.
So when you're going to this house, that until he says we're benching, that's it. He might keep bringing out more. Even though you think I'm done, you think you're done, but in the back of your head, you know that if he brings out more food, I'm eating it, right? So you haven't ended the meal in your head totally. You partially ended the meal. You said I'm done, and then he brings out something geschmack. Oh, look, I've got these beef jerky, beautiful, great, I don't know what. Taste my steaks. It's just, pass it over. I'll eat it. Delicious. You're like, oh no, I'm done. That's it. Says Taisus. Taisus will verify even more. It says Taisus. Silkidma, mashma. The implication is they cleared the table before they benched. V'lochayru kasha l'minagenu. We l'min shelanu. It says in the gemorah clearly that before they bench, they clear the table. But we don't clear the table. We keep the bread on the table, right? We're makbid not to clear the table for your bench. You're supposed to bench with the challah on the table. There should be bracha on the challah, right? We don't take the bread off the table before we bench. But you see in the gemorah, they did clear the table. What on earth is going on over here? Massive kasha. The kasha that they say in this, the kasha is better than the teretz. Big kasha. So it says, you know what? In those days, each one had a small table, right? In those days, everyone had their own little tables, and those little tables, they cleared all those tables, and one guy would be mavarach to be moitzi everyone. So his little table, they kept the bread on that table. But they were masalik all the other tables. But we nowadays eat on one table. We eat on one table. Do not clear the table until you finish birchas hamazon. Massive chiddush Taisa says. Why did they clear the table in those days? They didn't, because one guy was being mavarach. And when you mavarach, you have to have the bread in front of you. So everyone's eating on their own little table. The Reish Galus is getting up there, he's benching for everyone. They clear all the tables, all clear, but the table of the whoever is benching, he's still got the bread in front of him, and he benches. The idea being that you're thanking Hashem, like Hashem gave us food and it's left over. So where's left over? The table's empty.
So I don't understand what
So you gotta have bread. You gotta have bread on the table. Look how much chef Hashem gives us. There's more than we need. But there's nothing on the table. You gotta have in front of you bread. Look how much is leftovers.
I don't understand what you're saying.
That's why we don't clear the
table.
Huh?
You were saying we
all eat on one table. When you have guests in your house,
not at an event.
No, but in your house you eat at one table. So that's why you can't clear the table for your bench. There's one table. Don't clear it. You got to have bread on the table in your bench. In those days they cleared it because the guy that benched, they didn't clear his, they cleared everything else. It's a big chiddush. The chiddush in Taisa is that to say they only masalik the other tables, they weren't masalik his table. What?
We're not talking about a Shabbos meal at the house. We're talking about
some of this.
The Rosh Galus.
Okay, right.
So there were multiple tables.
Yeah, there's multiple tables, right. So you're saying Taisa is not such a chiddush. Taisa is more basic, it's poshut. There's multiple tables. Not everyone was sitting on one huge 500-meter table. Everyone had their own table. For some reason, Taisa seems to be saying, not because it's a wedding. I don't know how many people were in this party. Maybe it was a party with 20 people, right? I know, you're talking about something else. The first case was a wedding. This case is they went to his house. This is the Reish Galusa we're talking about. They're in his house. This wasn't a wedding. They still went to his house to eat. That's the case. They went to the Reish Galusa's house. They went to the Nasi's house to eat. This wasn't a wedding. This is still a regular Wednesday afternoon. He brought out food. But Taisa says, different tables. All right, thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day.